All right, we're going to add two mixed numbers. The first thing that I need to do is that I need to find the lowest common multiple between the denominators. So we have lowest common multiple right here. All right, and I'm going to find it. How I do that is I count by twos over here. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and I count by the other denominator 8. And the first place they meet is the lowest common multiple. And then I use that lowest common multiple to make common denominators. All right. So to make common denominators, all I need to do is I need to come over here to the 2 that I used, and I need to count how many times I used it to get to 8. I used it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and 4 times. So I'm going to use the identity property of multiplication to create common multiples. That means that I'm going to multiply by the number 1. And my 1, since I used the 2 4 times, my 1 is going to look, my 1 that I'm going to use is going to look like 4 over 4. And I'm going to multiply that. Why is it 4 over 4? Because I used the 2 over here. If I remember right, I used the 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So I have to multiply this 2 right here, the denominator, by 4 over 4, or the identity property of multiplication. And then what I'm going to get is I'm going to go ahead and multiply those out. So I'm going to end up with 3, and 1 times 4, multiply the numerators. So the numerators are the top numbers, okay? So we have the numerators, and then I multiply the denominators, which are the bottom numbers. So I'm going to have 3, and 1 times 4 is 4, and 2 times 4 is 8. So I have 3 and 4 eighths, and then you can see that the 8 down here that I have, the denominator 8, is already 8. I don't need to multiply it by anything. But if you want to keep everything consistent, you can if you wish. So if I do that, I have this 8 I used 1 time over here, okay? So if I use the 8 1 time, I could actually multiply this by 1 over 1. And it's going to stay the same because it's going to look the same because I'm just multiplying by 1. So I'm going to bring that over, and it's going to actually be 4 and 5 eighths. So it didn't change. All right? And then I add. So I'm going to add my mixed numbers, my whole numbers, okay? And then I'm going to add my fractions, the numerators. So I'm going to add my whole numbers, which are 7, and I'm going to add my numerators, which is 4 plus 5 is 9, and my denominators stay the same. Remember, my denominators are how big my pieces are of the whole. So if I had, for example, a pie with a denominator of 8, I would have it cut into 8 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I would have it cut into 8 pieces. That is what the denominator tells us, how many pieces my whole is cut into. So now that I have 9 eighths, let me just show you. All these are eighths. And then, so there's 8, and there's going to be my 9th eighth, okay? So I have 1 and 1/8. You can see that I have 1 whole, and I have 1/8 over here that I use. So that's 9 eighths. So I add this whole number here to my whole number, so I would have 8 and 1/8. Now, how do I do that mathematically without using a diagram? Well, I want you to know that the diagram is there because I want you to know that the 8 is how many pieces that your whole is cut up into, and the numerator tells me how many pieces that you get. But let's take that mathematically so we can do it. What I do is I pull out the whole, so my denominator is 8. So when I pull out the whole, I know my whole is cut into 8 pieces. So I'm going to pull out my whole pie. So that's 8 over 8. And then I subtract. 9 minus 8 is 1. And then I don't do anything with my denominators. I still have it cut into 8 pieces. So I have 1/8. So I pulled out my whole. So I add that to my whole number right there. So I have 8. And of course my 1/8, which is right here. Okay, so I have 8 and 1/8. The other way to do that is if I have 7 and 9/8, 7 and 9/8, oops, sorry, let's go 7 and 9/8, is I could actually take the 9 and I could divide it by 8, because that means the denominator goes into the numerator on top. So if I have that, that goes 1 time, and 1 times 8 is 8, and I subtract it off, and I have 1, and I put my remainder over my divisor. So I'm going to put my remainder over my divisor, so it's going to be 1/8. So you can see I have 1 and 1/8 here. I add this 1 to my whole number, I make it 8, and then this is left 1/8. So no matter how you do it, you're going to end up with 8 and 1/8. All right, so a couple review things. The first thing I did is I found my lowest common multiple. I used my lowest common multiple up here to get my common denominators, and I did that by using the identity property of multiplication, multiplying by a form of 1. How many times did I use the denominator to get to the lowest common multiple? And then after I got my common denominators, I added the numerators. If I had an improper fraction, which is the numerator is bigger than the denominator, I pulled out my whole number, and I ended up with 8 and 1/8. I hope that helps. Thank you.